So, we'll take a look and then decide what I want to do after that. Yeah. So, there has been this trend of video games getting more expensive. $80 for video games. Now, when I see a game that is $80, I don't buy it because that works out to be like fucking 120 something Australian. Wait. It's on. Wait, the game came out this year. It's on a fucking 50% sale. Oh no! Oh, they really want people to buy Wilds. But yeah, like, look at this. 105 Australian dollars retail. I think that was a $60 game? Maybe a $70 game. Popular searches. What is it? I'm not gonna click that one, because that's probably hentai. Red Dead Redemption 2. Look at this. Oh, okay, that's Ultimate Edition. $150. $90 otherwise. Like, games here are it is Steam. I don't have the age setting on right now. Hold on, let me just check. Because I'm almost certain that's what I'm gonna see if I scroll any further. Sexual content? Yes, we are 100% going to see hentai if I scroll any further. Yes. Okay, let's not do that. Let's not do that then. So, game prices are collapsing. Publishers were wrong.
I've heard you, and with today's story, it seems the rest of the industry is also beginning to hear you. Now, this year started with the fear that gaming is getting more expensive. Microsoft and Nintendo pushed the ceiling to
What is $80 Australian? 80 USD to AUD. Yeah, it's 120 Australian dollars. I like hentai. I do as well. We're not going to look at it on Twitch. Maybe on another website, but not on Twitch.
$80. An impossibly high ask, especially as everything else has got more and more pricey. But elsewhere in the industry, something quieter is happening. And it's this. The games that you are actually buying, well, we've got the data about them. And as it turns out, they're getting cheaper. $100.
Well, yeah, E33, wasn't that like a 50... I think that launched at $50
For Grand Theft Auto 6. That was the rumor that kicked off this year's anxiety about game prices. It was one that Take-Two have been happy to downplay, if not outright refute. But with GTA now delayed, we won't know the truth until next autumn. Though we've already seen audiences reject the new price ceiling of $80. Xbox tried to put The Outer Worlds 2 at $80, presumably buying some headroom for Microsoft's lovely 30% profit margin demand. But they quickly reversed that decision. The inference from that? They didn't see enough pre-orders. People essentially voted with their wallet, just that unlike real...
I think there's some games that could get away with it. I think if GTA 6 launched at $80 or more, it would sell. But you've got to be a very special game to do that. You don't get to do that if you're some random RPG that, like, some people enjoy. You've got to be, like, blockbuster game. You've got to be something people have been hyped for years. Like, Silksong could have launched at $60 and it would have sold. But if any other indie game did that, it wouldn't sell. If any other AAA game tries to launch at $100, it wouldn't sell. GTA 6, it's gonna sell. GTA 6 will launch at 70. I think it's gonna launch minimum 70. I think it's more likely to see 80.
Votes, the great thing about voting with your wallet is you don't need to do anything to cast your vote. It turns out audiences just wouldn't pay that price for The Outer Worlds 2. But you know what they would pay? The regular price. Because, selling at a normal price, the game did have a top 10 launch. Though, the right product at $80 will sell.
Yeah.
Mario Kart World kind of proved that. Even bundled with Switch 2 for many buyers, you don't get a 92% attach rate across 9.57 million copies without lots of people shelling out the full amount. But that's only one side of this story, because the reality we need to dive into today is about how off-console prices have been plummeting. But there's a not so funny thing hanging over all of this, and it's the simple fact that video game spending is actually falling, but subscriptions are rising. We've seen that in analyst reports, and too often, well, we're paying for subs we don't use. That's why Rocket Money is today's video sponsor, because they make it easy to get a handle on your subscriptions.
I haven't seen a Rocket Money ad in a long time.
And you can even get started today for free at rocketmoney.com/Ballular. Now, Rocket Money will securely and safely identify recurring charges for you.
Yeah, and Mario Kart is such a staple game that, again, they can get away with it. Like, there's so few games that can really get away with pricing like that. GTA, Mario Kart, honestly, FIFA would probably get away with it because the people that are buying FIFA are not gamers. They buy FIFA. Maybe, like, I feel like a lot of the sports games would get away with it because the people that are buying those games are just not gamers. Like, they usually buy 1, maybe 2 games a year. They'll buy FIFA, maybe they buy, like, NBA 2K, maybe they're an F1 player, things like that.
You can cancel them in just a few taps. They've basically put the work in to make that real smooth, so if this is a chore you've been putting off, well, now's the time.
Sports gamers are something different.
But it's not just that. Rocket Money will also help you with bill negotiation. You simply upload your bill, and they will be able to help. For a personal example, whenever my internet went to its off-contract price, I was able to renegotiate a speed upgrade and also half my monthly bill.
Crazy.
But here's the thing. I was overloaded with paperwork, and I actually did that negotiation late. And by doing it late, I basically wasted a bunch of money. So with the likes of Rocket Money being able to help, you can actually go and make progress in those things way more easily. And that is the huge value of Rocket Money. They make it all easy. They've canceled over $500 million of subscriptions.
Wow,
They've helped save
I'd like $500 million.
$740 a year when using all of their app's premium features. They've other great tools beyond what I've mentioned, so if you want to spend less and save more, which, you know, sounds pretty good to me, you can join the over 5 million Rocket Money members using rocketmoney.com/Ballular or just by clicking the link down below.
I wonder how many people have... I wonder how many people have subs to Rocket Money that they don't use. So you get Rocket Money to cancel your shitty subs, and then you just have Rocket Money going in the background, just burning you money.
You can get started for free, play around, have some fun, save some money, and then unlock more features with premium, and that's rocketmoney.com/Ballular News.
Wow.
If you've bought a game on Steam in the last 18 months, you probably paid $20 or less. In fact, you've probably...
What have I bought recently? It's actually a good question. What have I bought recently? Is there a way to check your purchase history? Recently played. I can find recently played. Is there a recently bought? Someone knows if that's a thing. I'd look at email. Okay, I don't want to go to my emails.
You've been paying less since 2023 than you did from 2020. Now, what are these numbers? Well, these numbers are from the research.
I know that, like, for most games, I have, like, a hard limit for the amount I'm going to pay for it. I usually don't pay over, like... Honestly, I don't pay over 60 Australian dollars for most games. There's a few exceptions. Does this show any of my details, or is it just my purchase history? Okay, it's just my history. So we have Abandoned Archive, which was $8. We have Ball Pit, which was 22 Australian dollars. I bought 5 games together, so that's $140 there. Silk Song was $30. Bought a bunch of Need for Speed games. JDM, Crisis Core, bunch of Final Fantasy. Death Stranding I paid $20 for. Yeah, honestly. Kazan was the last... Kazan and Claire Obscure were the last, like, full price games I paid for. And that was... When was that? Like, 8 months ago.
of Simon Carlos, who runs the excellent Game Discover Co. newsletter. He tracked average and median prices for the top 50 new monthly games on Steam.
Also, keep in mind that is Australian pricing, so it's going to be like 75-ish% of what that number is.
During that period of time, ranked by copy sold, and you're looking at the graphs now. We see a median price as low as $10, as high as $20, with averages between $16 and $29. Shocker, Steam users are thrifty people who like deals. We probably didn't need this much analysis to work that out, but...
And a lot of people realize that they have so many fucking games they haven't played that they can just wait for a sale for some game they want to try out. You don't have to pay whatever price it is.
That's not where I'm ending. Here's where things get truly interesting. From February 2023 to October 2025, the average amount of money spent on a best-selling game went down by 2%.
I'd want to see this number, like 2 years is nice, but I'd want to see this over like a 10-year period. I really do want to know if this is just a short-term trend or if this is like actually, yes, people are paying less for games.
The median, though, it went down by 20%. That means that more games are selling at a lower price. And whenever Carlos took a look at the revenue earned, the trend actually held. Now, in theory, that should favor more expensive games. They generate more revenue per sale. But even there, the median dropped from $23.75 to $20.35. That's about 14% of a drop. And do bear in mind
the
that...
backlog is real and looking real appealing as people are not going to upgrade this year. Yeah, that's another thing. Motherboard sales, I think, are like 50% down. People are not upgrading systems. Like, usually end of the year, like Black Friday to December, that period is where people do a lot of upgrades. People are not buying motherboards. People are not upgrading. I don't know about GPUs, but I presume GPUs are probably the same.
As this has been happening, the currency has been inflating. So, even as players feel like they are being pressured towards $80 games, what they're actually buying is getting cheaper and cheaper.
Yeah.
And what's key is that this is not showing us what has been offered to players, it's showing us what players have actually chosen. It's showing the best-selling premium games on the platform.
Yeah, here you go. EA Sports, NBA 2K. Again, sports gamers are very special people. Also Borderlands, but, you know, Borderlands is Borderlands as well. And Dying Light as well, yeah, okay.
And that does feel like a bit of a win, right? That we are seeing smaller teams with cheaper games beginning to dominate the sales space. That says a lot for the value of Steam.
It's almost like this is what was happening back on the PS2. On the PS2, you had a lot of, like, the companies which are now big AAA games, AAA studios, like Ubisoft and EA, they were making small experimental games, right? Like, Prince of Persia is a relatively small-scale game. The Jak and Daxter series, a relatively small-scale game. Sly Cooper, all of these things, like, the investment in these games is just so much less, and big studios are not even touching this space anymore. Like, you're seeing a little bit of it come back now, but for so long, like, that AA space kind of just vanished. But you're seeing these, like, you're seeing these more than indie, but less than, like, big AAA stuff, actually going and making interesting games. Yeah, mid-shelf for AA games used to be the norm. PS3 onwards, the shift towards, the shift's been towards AAA. Exactly, right? Like, look, how many, or, like, great example, the Tasmanian Tiger. It is a solid platformer. Where are the games like that now? They're in the indie space. No, like, none of these big companies are even touching this area. There are so many genres that if indie devs weren't making them, they wouldn't have games. RTS being a prime example, actually.
And in a world where people would have to compare the price of a full console plus a subscription for multiplayer and more expensive games and weigh that up to a Steam machine with generally far cheaper games,
Steam
machine. It also makes the Steam machine look stronger as well. Overall, though, it's somewhat validating an argument you see all the time, right? The argument people make every time someone suggests an $80 price point, which is, that you make your profit in aggregate. So make your games cheaper, and then more people will buy them. Buying 4 $20 indie games is to many people better than one $80 AAA game. Surely that's what's going on. Surely that's what everyone is doing.
Well, the other thing with cheaper games is they're actually games, right? And I love my big stories, right? You know, even like Yakuza 6 is very like cutscene heavy. But if I play a game like Enter the Gungeon, like Ball Pit, like Hades, these are video games first. Actual games, not tech demos. Yeah, exactly. Schedule One's another great example. Path of Exile is a prime example. I don't even fucking know what happens in this game. These are video games. They are not interactive movies. And that's the problem with a lot of, like... Here's a good example. God of War. God of War used to be a video game. Go back to God of War on the PS2 or look at the PSP games. It's a video game. Now, on the other hand, like, people love it, right? Don't get me wrong. People love modern God of War. But it's not the same thing. And there are games that get away with this. But it feels like the industry is mainly focused on interactive movies rather than actually making games. And this is why I think there's been such a boom in the indie and the AA space, because they just left it wide open. No one was making video games anymore.
Well, ish. Let's look more into the data. Carlos gave us the perfect example. It's the September releases on Steam, where Silk Song sold like gangbusters at $20, with 4.6 million copies.
Do you remember how many indie devs were so pissed at Team Cherry for releasing at $20? It's like, how dare you release this game that you developed for 7 years at $20? You should price it more. If I release my game right now, I'm not going to be able to, no one's going to buy my game. No one's going to, no one can like, no one's going to buy it because your game's cheaper. Like, yeah. Get good. Frankly.
Be shifted on Steam alone. That's nearly double the sales of a full-price title, like Borderlands 4. The immediate takeaway is a lower barrier to entry.
Oh yeah, also look at this. Literally 2 weeks later, Megabonk came out. So it's like, oh no, you're releasing at $20? Yeah, make a good game. Or Clover Pit. This came out 3 weeks later. Make a good game. Yeah. Or like a bunch of other random shit that all released in September.
Of a full-price title, like Borderlands 4. The immediate takeaway is a lower barrier to entry at the price of a couple of coffees, meaning you give yourself the widest possible audience, and a big game. And in theory, that also means that more people can buy more games. But it's actually not quite that simple. You see, regardless of price, the majority of game players don't actually buy that many games. Circana's Future of Games report surveyed 2,500 US players on self-reported purchase patterns. About a third of the market says they buy just one game or fewer a year.
I don't like self-reported frequency. Because a lot of people either lie or don't know what they actually bought. And you'll see this a lot in, like, diet studies, where it's, like, self-reported calorie intake, and a lot of people don't actually know what they eat. A lot of people don't know what they buy. I think a much better way to handle this would have been to actually look at purchase history rather than just self-reported. Like, focus the data on Steam purchase history, for example, and you could actually properly identify this.
Under 2/3, 63%, buy fewer than 2 games a year. That is absolutely insane to me, but I suppose when I think about what my norms are, or maybe you do the same, we probably have a sampling bias. One that is in and around enthusiast gamers.
Yes, we are gamers.
We do buy more games, but it seems that with broader audiences, that is less the case. Now, obviously, that's Circana doing a survey of 2,500 people in the US. It's good enough work. It's hypothesis-generating work, but obviously, it is just a survey.
Sure.
Though I would say that when you think about games overall, a lot of it is plausible. You see, a lot of people...
Yeah, there are a lot of single game Andes. There's a lot of sports gamers. There's a lot of people that buy Battlefield 6 or buy Call of Duty, and that is the game they play. And maybe they buy a second game.
We're only interested in buying this year's sport game, or this year's Call of Duty. Well, maybe not this year's Call of Duty. Maybe they bought Battlefield instead. But the majority of any product-based industry is often people who are gently engaged in it. Not people, perhaps, like you and me.
You are the whale.
It's actually the top of the chart that complicates things here, because those people probably aren't the ones buying indie games for $20 en masse. No, that's the other 37% of people, but even that 37% is quite stratified. 22% say they buy a game every 3 months. That's 4 games a year, and that adds up with Valve's own data. Yes, Valve's own data suggests that users play...
I'd like to know the sampling for this. 33% buying less than once a year. Like, are these like mobile gamers? Are we talking about people that actually play on console? Or like play on PC? Or are we talking about like mobile gamers as well? Because obviously, yeah, mobile gamers probably don't buy that many games. I do think there's probably some question about this data. Also, yeah, to be fair, there are a lot of free-to-play gamers. There are a lot of people that only play like Fortnite or Genshin or, I don't know, pick some other popular free-to-play game.
Year, and that adds up with Valve's own data. Yes, Valve's own data suggests that users played only 4 games on Steam on average in 2023 and 2024. A further 10% buy a new game monthly, which is of course great for an industry releasing thousands of games a year. But we need to put this in perspective. If you bought Silksong and any other game in September, 2 games in 1 month, then you are only 4% of the games market. That's kind
you
of
are
wild.
the whale.
Even if we're allowed to some swing and fuzziness because a survey is only as good as the survey, the point I think still does stand. And of course, it's a point that we do see in a lot of other things as well. Take whaling, right? Whaling and free-to-play games, where the majority of the revenue does come from a very small strata of that game's player base. And when we see data like that, I think we begin to understand why all of those publishers and indie devs moved their releases away from Silksong.
As a kid, I was a mobile gamer. Buying a game was never an option, so everyone got good at sourcing APKs. When I was a kid, there were so many like Flash games out there. So like there were always options for free games. And then besides that, like actually I played a lot of Realm of the Mad God. Realm of the Mad God's really fun.
Or of course, away from GTA 6.
Also
and in the case of
RuneScape.
the indies, would especially be because most of those indies are at the same price point or cheaper than Silksong. So if you're releasing against Silksong, a game with massive cut-through to enthusiast audiences, if you're releasing against that, then, well, you're betting on the 4% of the market turning up that does actually buy multiple games a month. That doesn't really seem like a great strategy, does it? And here's the kicker. What if I told you there's another layer? You see, this chart does not distinguish between new games and already released games that are on sale. Every time someone buys a game that's been out for 6 months, they're probably not buying a new game that month to go along with it.
My current offline game, Trails in the Sky SC. Now, well, this game's not new. When did SC come out? I guess the PC release was later. The game originally released in 2006. So, yeah. A while ago.
Regardless of price. So, more people aren't buying games, even as prices keep trending down. Now, if that is the case, as a bunch of this data suggests, well, why then are audiences feeling like they are constantly being asked for more and more? When people are asked...
Well, you're also dealing... Like, when you're dealing with audiences, you're dealing with people that are gamers, right? Like, this chart is not about, like, hardcore gamers. It's about people that play video games. People that are hardcore gamers that are buying a lot of games, yeah, they definitely would feel the effect of prices massively going up.
To pay $80 or $70 for a video game, Nintendo, Microsoft, or Sony are basically banking on a fairly simple principle, that the people who actually have money will spend it regardless of anything else that's going on. Essentially, they're betting on it being a premium product with inflexible demand. That is why marketing teams target those people. That's why those absurd collector's editions exist, right? The people who absolutely love games and have money. They're the people these companies can count on. The games industry basically thrives in people who can spend without thinking about it, which has always been the case. Buying more than one $60 game at launch has been unaffordable to people for years. But the problem, well, the problem is the proportion of people with money to spend freely actually does appear to be shrinking. Get this. As of September, the top 10% of earners accounted for 50% of US retail sales. And the very same year, spending in games is actually down. The 18 to 25 age group in the US is spending nearly a quarter less in games this year.
Keep in mind, when you're dealing with younger gamers have Roblox, they have Fortnite, they have Genshin, Where Winds Meet came out recently. Like, there is so many free games. Marvel Rivals. There are so many, like, League. The amount of free games that exist now, obviously they have microtransactions. Sure. But a lot of these games you can play without spending anything. So it's unsurprising to me that a lot of people don't spend money on video games. There are good free games now.
And everyone, just in large, is down a couple of percent. But on the whole, most game spending is only a few points down. Now, given we're in rough economic times, that could seem like a good thing, right? Oh, the world is experiencing troubles, but games are only down in most categories by a few percent. What if I told you it's actually worse than that? You see, the difference that's been made up, right? What's made this only a few points down? Well, it's basically subscriptions making up the difference, because those have grown all year. But that comes from the bottom of the spending population, not the top, right? It comes from people who are seeking more and more value for their increasingly limited dollars, whilst also spending less and less on premium games. And I think that is the big tension that people are feeling. We're in a situation where game marketing, traditional big games, are basically out of reach to most of the audience, more so than perhaps ever in recent memory. But the companies haven't changed how they talk to players as a whole. A lot of the market has changed underneath those companies, but it's not really like it seems they've really changed their comms to match. And that is leading to people feeling ignored. It's leading to people facing demands that they cannot meet. And that's because the companies that used to be targeting them are now not targeting them. They are targeting someone with more disposable income. And that's a tough change to stomach. But by contrast, the $20 games on Steam are changing. Individual indie developers are watching game prices creep lower and lower. And they're just hoping that they will get enough sales to succeed, because they cannot afford to price higher and risk player blowback. Now, we're not quite at the mobile game space.
Yeah, I've talked to a number of indie devs, like when I have them on the podcast, like, some of them are like, do I want to charge under $10? Like, what is the price point for my game? Do I charge $20 and then put it in competition with Silksong? Do I go as low as something like Vampire Survivors? But then I have to sell so many copies for it to be profitable. Like, it's a difficult problem to solve. So like, if $80 is too much for the US and EU, imagine for most people, a lot of publishers do regional pricing. Now, a lot of them don't. Absolutely. There are some companies where they're like, oh, let's charge $80 in Venezuela. How many sales do you get? 3. But Steam does provide the tools to do regional pricing. They don't do regional pricing in all currencies, but they do provide the tools to say, okay, in this country, charge at this price. So they can charge lower if they want to. Some of them just choose not to.
Where developers basically can't afford to price games as premium products anymore, but we are seeing a shift in how
most indies do it right, though.
sold.
Yeah, that's true.
And what that may lead to may not be great for all of us.
Most.
Because if you can't ask players for more than $25 without facing comparisons to Silksong, then you may start having to scope your development very differently indeed. And that means that some traditional games simply would be out of reach. It could also mean that we do feel more and more nickel and dimed. So, it's not all doom and gloom. It actually seems there's a lot of vibrancy in the indie scene. But what we are seeing is a changing market, changing behaviors, and a AAA sector that is struggling to keep up pace with that change. So no wonder they're out of touch.
Well, you also have the problem of, like, American studios and, like, Western studios in general, they are getting fucking cooked by China. China is coming in and being like, hey guys, your games fucking suck. Here's Wukong. Enjoy. Oh, here's Where Winds Meet. A free-to-play game that is, like, basically Sekiro. Okay? Like, yeah, like Chinese game, and India is beginning to enter the game development space as well. I think I think within like maybe the next 10 years, because India is obviously like the wealth in India is growing. I think within the next 10 years, we're gonna start seeing a lot of game studios coming out of India, and I don't know, like if American studios have like if they don't sort their shit out, I don't think they have any idea what they're gonna do. I know there was one game, it looked kind of rough, but there was like this Souls-like game coming out of an Indian studio. And I think this is something we're legitimately going to be seeing very soon.
Speaking of out of touch, Bungie. That's certainly something a lot of people would say about them, and they have just had some not so rosy news. Basically, a big write-off at the same time that they kind of admitted they shat the bed with Destiny 2. If you want to learn about that, watch this video next.
Well, that was a good video. I always like Brodie content. It's always plenty of fun. I don't know what most studios. Gaming is becoming big with Ghost of Yote promotions in mails and metro stations. We even have TJ streaming on our streaming sites. Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Yeah, I think Western studios have kind of, for so long, they've kind of just sort of rode on the fact that rode on name recognition. I think is a good way to put it, right? Because like if you go back to the PS3. That was sort of like the golden era of Western RPGs. You had Mass Effect. You had a lot of other, like... You obviously had Skyrim come out. You had Oblivion come out. You had a lot of these really big titles. And since that point, a lot of these companies have kind of just rode on the fact that, hey, guys, you like our games. You had the Arkham games come out. Not RPG, but same, like... big Western games. You had the Gears series. Halo was good for a long time. Not anymore. You had Dead Space, and this created a lot of name recognition for these studios. And then they kind of got big and bloated and kind of stopped making good games. And then China came in and just basically took over everything. Japan started to like actually make video games again. Korea has a developing game market as well. India is almost at the point where they're going to join the game market as well. And yeah, they've been resting on their laurels, exactly. They've kind of just been like eating away at goodwill for a long time. And now they have no idea what to do because they have an entire generation of game developers that don't know how to make games. And these studios are they're kind of cooked. And this is how Concord happened. Like, Concord happened because they thought that you could release another 5v5 hero shooter. It wasn't like, yes, Marvel Rivals was a good hero shooter, but it had its appeal. It had good character design. It had interesting mechanics. It had, like, you know, it's willing to make characters that are fucking weird. Like, characters play drastically different in that game, and they are as recognizable as what you have in something like Overwatch. But another 5v5 hero shooter that is just a 5v5 hero shooter, like, that's not a selling point anymore. It's kind of like the whole thing with open world games. For a long time, open world was a selling point, and then every game was open world, and you're like, I don't care anymore. Japan's game monopoly was so big they had to innovate and to make a lot of games. Yeah, Japan used to be the kings of video games, and they did the same thing. They rested on their laurels for a while, and, like, you know, post Final Fantasy X, yeah, they might have sold a lot, but they weren't, like, early Final Fantasy games were cultural icons. Yeah, there are people that like Lightning, and there are people that like Noctis. But, like, Final Fantasy isn't the, like, generation-defining game that it used to be, like it was in, like, FF7, for example, or FF6. Another 5v5 hero shooter where the characters all look like they came out of a lab. Yeah, they look like they came out of the generic 5v5 hero shooter lab. Yeah. I was looking at Concord, like, did you not see what happened to Battleborn? And that was Gearbox? Yeah. Anyway, I think that's going to be where we end off for today.